I am Ray, and I'm about to save you years of mental anguish. Now, the first thing we have to understand is a little something called energy. Ever heard of it? And our mind is like a pointed tool. It points at things, and wherever it points, that is where energy flows. Just remember, where attention goes, energy flows. Mind. And so the problem is, the moment we get caught in the trap of ruminating on negative thoughts, or on negativity in general, we start feeding it our energy. And energy is a few different things. Energy is power. Energy is life. Energy is the force of creation. It is our creative power. So whatever we focus on, that is what we give our power to. That is what we give our life to. And that is what we create. So you could say, your life right now is nothing more than the accumulation of all the things you focused on in the past. And it makes sense. I mean, how else would your life manifest like this? Like this? The entire quality of the life that you create for yourself is determined exactly by the quality of the things you focus your attention on. And you see, the only reason why people the only reason that people fail at life, so-called, is because they don't know how to manage their mind. They don't know how to wield this tool. It takes skill. Like if you've ever tried to hammer a nail before, oh, hit your thumb, sorry, until you get good at it, until you can bang the nail with 1 or 2 swings. Ah, true Mexican. But nobody teaches you how to use your mind, except for me. There, we're gonna be okay. The problem is we get caught in these feedback loops of death where we focus on negativity. The negativity becomes worse, which causes us to focus on more negativity, making us feel worse. Because when your energy is perpetually being hemorrhaged, it's being lost, well, where life is not, death is. What do you think depression is? Depression is like being consumed by a black hole. Darkness, death. You feel like death, literally. You don't feel like doing anything. You don't have any motivation. You don't have any desire, because motivation and desire come from life. So you cannot survive without the life force. So if you're struggling with depression, the only way to become free is to take your power back by learning how to change what you focus on. And you can take yourself up out of any dark situation, any difficulty, any problems. As it is said, the mind can make a heaven out of hell or a hell out of heaven. You can have 99 things going wrong, focus on the one thing going right, and be free. And you can also have 99 things going right, focus on the one thing going wrong, pull it all down, destroy it all. That's the power you have. You better use it responsibly, or I'll get out the swords, and we'll have ourselves a battle. Think about a test. You are about to be tested, and if you fail, you don't want to know what happens. Let's say, during your day, you focus on 50% things that are good, positive, which means that you focus on 50% things that are negative. Let's just assume. Your score, unfortunately, is a 50 out of 100, and you fail. Back to the void for you. Banished to the shadow realm. But if you can get these numbers up, let's say you focus on 70% positive and only 30% negative, well then that's a C. Congratulations. And what that means is that, well, it's just the quality of your life. Do you want a C or an F or an A? Because there are people living A lives, great lives, everything they ever wanted, all because they learn how to manage their mind. But the first step, you must realize, it comes down to awareness. Because if you're not aware, well, what are you going to do? You're just going to unconsciously ruin your life. I like to say, if people only paid attention to the thoughts that they think and the words that they speak for just one day, they would know exactly why their life is the way it is. No question. Because with our minds and our mouth, we create reality. So, logically, the first step is becoming more aware of how we're already doing this. Well, first of all, we have to get rid of the false assumption that life is just happening to you. It's not. It's not happening to you. Life is happening through you. Life is nothing more than a reflection of you. Let's think about it mathematically for a moment. Because through math, there is undeniable reason and logic. So we have out and we have in. These two are opposites. And in fact, They are really just two parts of the same one thing. You can't ever separate out from in. You can't ever separate plus from negative. So, whatever is true over here, mathematically speaking, has to be opposite over here. So if you got 1, it's got to be -1. And what this represents is reality. So we kind of maybe assume that there's a difference between the inner world and the outer world, but there's not. It's just one reality. You go into the dream state every night, even if you don't remember, and have these crazy experiences in this whole other realm. But in truth, that dream realm is not different than this realm. The only difference, contradiction, it's the same reality, but the difference is that this reality is operating very slowly. So there's a continuance of our experience where we wake up every day in the same body. The inner world, the nature of that reality is not so solid. So entire universes, let's say, are created and born and die every night. All of these dream characters, they're born in an instant, they die in an instant, gone forever. In the outer reality, we are bound by the laws of space and time. But when we go within, the more we go within, the less we are bound to the laws of space and time, which is why you can do things like fly in your dreams, because the laws of the outer world break down as you go within. The point I'm trying to make is that whatever information you have within you is going to be expressed and reflected out in the world. Now here's where things get tricky, because it's not always so black and white, meaning the information in you is not simply going to manifest itself as the opposite in the outer world. The point I'm trying to make is that this reality is one reality. As they say, as above, so below. As within, so without. So the only thing we have to worry about is changing the information within us, and our life will reflect that change. Because right now, all of our problems, all of our struggles, everything that we're dealing with is nothing more than a reflection of our own selves. An easier way to look at this, within us, at the very source, is the source of life, the source of creation. In the outer world, things are temporary and changing. In the inner world, everything is eternal. That's where you get ideas like, eternal hell and eternal heaven. Don't fool yourself. The moment you die in this world, you're no longer bound by the boundaries? Bound by the boundaries? You're no longer bound by the laws of space and time. So what happens is that life flows through you out into the world and expresses itself as your life. Through that journey from source to out here, there's going to be all kinds of information in which life is being filtered through, and that is called karma. Karma is the information stored in your body, in your system. And depending on your unique karma, determines how unique your life expresses itself. And it is in your battle with your problems and your struggles in which that karma is burned off and you become more and more free. And that is what you could say, the whole point of life. It's like this game where we enter into these bodies to go through experiences to become free. Free from our attachments, free from bondage. And this is a very important point. It's that if we can reframe our struggles, our problems, our suffering as the exact thing that we need at this exact right time for our highest spiritual growth, we can stop focusing on self-destruction. Because what happens is that most people, when they go through problems, they just wallow in their suffering. And when you're wallowing in your suffering, you don't have the clarity to understand the lessons that life is teaching you. And you see, it's not that God has necessarily put these exact situations in your life. It's just the way things are. Life is just a reflection of you. The eternal manifests in the temporary. The limitless manifests in the limited. To experience separation from itself. To rejoice in the act of becoming free. Life is experienced in contrast. That is where meaning and purpose is. Once you understand that the suffering is the point, so that you can enjoy the relief when it comes, you stop asking yourself the question, why? Why is this happening to me? Why is this going on? Because as you solidify yourself in that teaching, as it becomes more and more clear to you, you begin to see clearly that everything is working out perfectly for you, no matter what is happening. You can see how life is always kind of shaping you, like this artist, just chipping away, painting your life, and all of it is beautiful. And with this understanding comes great freedom, because you'll stop judging your suffering so much. You'll stop judging yourself so much. You'll begin to see the perfection behind it all, and you'll be able to work through your experiences and overcome them and transcend them. Whereas a lot of people die just suffering, not knowing how to overcome their problems. The problems kill them. So we begin becoming more aware of the fact that life is a reflection of us. And we begin this self-reflection process. You could call it a journey of self-discovery, where we begin focusing on how life is being a reflection of us. What is life trying to teach us? Where are we still attached? And we discover that our problems are not an obstacle. They are the pathway forward. There was a story of the Knights of the Round Table, and they went in search for the Holy Grail, and they found themselves staring face to face with a great dark forest. And each man went into the forest at the place that seemed darkest to them. Now the moral of the story is that whatever it is you're going through, you will enter into the dark forest of your own mind, and you will enter it at the place that is darkest to you. Your deepest, most difficult problems and struggles, that which causes the maximum amount of suffering for you. And well, if you choose not to face your darkness, well then may God have mercy on your soul, because it's not going away. The only way out is through. So you have to face it. And at the end of that journey, you find the Holy Grail. And what the Holy Grail is, it's a symbolic representation of everything you've ever desired. Psychologically, it's a symbol of the self, your true nature, your true and authentic self. You could call it God. You can call it heaven, salvation. You could call it everything you've ever desired. It's freedom and liberation from suffering. And in this dark forest, you are going to face what I call the monster mind. This great beast that is guarding the Holy Grail, that is going to stalk you as you go on your journey. And what the monster mind is, it's the accumulation of all the rejected parts of yourself. And depending on how you react to the monster mind determines whether or not you make it to the end of this maze, or you die in the forest. Here is a psychological way of looking at it. Here's your psyche. This little circle. It's like a little light. And around the light is darkness. Let's just call it the shadow. Now, throughout our life, we develop an ego, which is our center of experience. It's our identity of who we believe we are. And you could say our psyche is a greater part of that. The ego is small. Doesn't have to be so exactly accurate, but you get the point. The ego, like a metal ball, begins to attract all of these other metal objects. And in this scenario, the metal objects are beliefs, stories, let's just say personality traits. And as you see, from childhood to adulthood, we become more and more clear about who we are. When we're babies, we have no identity. It doesn't exist. Around the age of 2, we start developing an ego, which is why they call them the terrible twos. Because an ego, all it says is, me, I want what I want, and if I don't get what I want, then I'm going to be upset. And I'm going to make you realize that I'm upset. You're going to know. And then our brains develop, and we kind of grow out of it a little bit. Softens up, and then it comes back around the age of, the teenage years, in which we develop an even stronger sense of self. That is when our identity becomes, at least for the time being, more certain. And then we mature and grow until our brains stop developing, and we have a general idea of who we are. And then we change a little bit. But the problem is that oftentimes our psyche doesn't grow in a healthy way. Everybody experiences trauma. Everybody experiences conditioning. So in order to fit in with society, in order for our parents to really love us, they have to cut away parts of ourselves that don't fit in. We can't be too authentic because then, people are going to feel uncomfortable. So all the parts of ourselves that we reject get cast away from the light and into the darkness, into the shadow. But the problem is that those rejected parts, they don't go away. They begin to fester and morph into this Frankenstein beast that I call the monster mind. And then later in life, once the monster mind is fully grown and is pissed off, it comes back to eat the ego for rejecting it. Because how would you feel if you were cast into eternal darkness because you were ugly? You wouldn't feel very good. And that is why you see people die from things like depression and addiction and negative thoughts and become serial killers. They become possessed by this beast. And once they are consumed by it, it's over. So the only way to prevent this tragedy is to go back into the darkness and save those rejected parts of ourselves. Going through the dark forest and facing the monster mind, you will either perceive the monster mind to be a great beast, a great demon, trying to kill you, trying to eat you, or you will eventually realize that it is a guide leading you to the Holy Grail. And depending on where your attitude is at, determines whether or not you fail or succeed. Because the more you fight the monster mind, the more it's just going to destroy you. The ego cannot do anything. It's a tiny little light that will slowly but surely be consumed by darkness. And the light's just going to get smothered out. And so through the trauma and the conditioning that we experience, our psyche becomes maladapted. A healthy psyche is symmetrical. The more perfect the circle is, the healthier it is. But, being human, it's not really how it goes. There's usually a lot of imperfections. Now, we aren't made aware of these imperfections until we're fully grown. There may be signs as we grow up of problems, but they don't often manifest until later in life, because as the psyche grows, the imperfections become more obvious, and the more unstable it becomes, meaning the system can no longer sustain itself. Imagine like a sun. The perfect sun can sustain itself. It's doing just fine. But there are suns, for instance, like our sun. It lasts billions and billions and billions of years. Maybe not that many billions. But there are suns or stars, like hyper blue giants, that only last a few 100 million years until they explode in a supernova. That is because they are chaotic and unstable. So the more unstable a system is, the quicker it dies. And that is true for our own selves. And so the goal is to return to psychic wholeness, totality. And that is what it means. Well, Carl Jung called it individuation. But it's also called union with God. Because the more whole you become, the more you become the embodiment of the divine. Because that is what God is. God is wholeness. God is totality. And the more imperfect your psyche is, the further you stray from that divine image, and the quicker death manifests in your life. And so the only way to return to psychic wholeness is to rescue those lost parts. And because life is a reflection of you, life will tell you what parts you are missing. Because life will demand certain things of you. And well, if we are unable to meet life's demands, it is because we are lacking in some area. And in your pursuit of meeting life's demands, growing and evolving and living the life that you desire, that pressure will call upon you to develop those lost parts of yourself. And the problems and the suffering you experience will be because you have not yet integrated the rejected parts of yourself and therefore are not in psychic wholeness. For example, at a basic level, there are two forms of energy. There's masculine energy and there's feminine energy. There's light, there's darkness. There's order, there's chaos, and our relationship to these energies is determined by our relationship to our parents. So, more than likely, unless you just lived in a great home, great family, and even then, you're still going to experience some trauma, a little bit of problems. Oftentimes, we are too attached to one of these energies, and if we're really traumatized, it's going to be both. As a man, if you're too attached to the masculine side of things, you will experience problems in your life being too harsh, being unempathetic, hurting other people, being too aggressive, being too animalistic. And that is why people, or men I should say, land themselves in prison. Too much aggressive energy. And because there is imbalance, there is destruction. Through balance, there is harmony, there is perfection, there is life. But through imbalance, it's the opposite. When you are imbalanced, there is a lack of harmony, there is imperfection, and there is death. That is why in your life, you will manifest problems based off where you are imbalanced, where you are too attached to certain energies. And you'll see by facing your problems in life, you'll naturally grow into a more balanced individual. And when that harmony is restored in your life, the problems go away. Because life is nothing more than a reflection of you. Your problems are a reflection of energetic imbalance. As a man, if you're too attached to the feminine element, you'll be like a man-child, sitting around all day, doing nothing, playing video games, not living your life, no purpose, nothing. And so, if you're too attached to the masculine, life will call you to integrate the feminine, meaning being more kind and compassionate, more loving. If you're too attached to the feminine, life will call you to integrate the masculine. Go do something with your life. Develop purpose. Go work out. Things like that. If you're a woman, if you're too attached to the masculine, you will be like too focused on work and making money and doing things. And you'll continue to attract feminine men who you are not really that attracted to. You'll attract the man-child, and you will be like his mother, being the one who's dominant in the relationship, taking the initiative, and you're going to continue to get annoyed by this. And if, as a woman, you're too attached to the feminine, you're going to get yourself into trouble by being unable to say no. And people will be able to manipulate you into doing their bidding, and you'll be like this people pleaser. You don't want to upset anybody. You won't have boundaries, and people will take advantage of you. So, as a woman, if you're too attached to the masculine, the name of the game is submission and surrender. Learning how to let go, not needing to control everything, integrating the feminine energy. And if you're too attached to the feminine energy, life is going to require of you to begin putting up boundaries, saying no, getting clear on who you are, what kind of life you want to live, and then marching in that direction. Integrating the masculine. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you cannot get away with not integrating both energies. Because if there is imbalance, you will continue to experience problems in your life because of this. And you will not know why this keeps happening. And until you learn the lesson, it's going to repeat itself over and over again until you reach inner harmony. And so, growing up, if we have a bad relationship with either parent, we're going to cast these personalities, these different traits, whether masculine or feminine, we're going to cast them into the shadow, and they're going to come back later as problems. And oftentimes, the problems begin to manifest themselves as negative thoughts. Negative thoughts are a warning sign from your system, from your body, like a red alarm bell, telling you, hey, there's imbalance here, there's a problem, you got to pay attention. If you're having negative thoughts on any kind of regular basis, there is imbalance in your system that needs to be addressed, like a check engine light, and it's not going away until you address it. Now, these are two basic energies. It gets more complicated than that. For instance, you could have traumatized instincts, like the sexual instinct. If the sexual instinct has been traumatized, you're going to have negative thoughts about it, intrusive thoughts that are going to disturb you. But all it is, the monster mind, it's a guide telling you where the problem is. Same thing with the social instinct. If you constantly have anxiety around other people, obviously that's a problem, and life is calling you to address it, because within your shadow, there is a rejected part of you that is sociable. Within your shadow is your potential of who you could be. And so here's an easy way to understand where the problem is, and then what to do about it moving forward. Our system has two general functions. You could say there's a conscious and there's an unconscious. The conscious is essentially who we believe we are. It's our sense of self. And the unconscious is the intelligence of our body. So it's all of the instincts, all of the animalistic behaviors and functions. And so we receive information through the conscious mind. And based off the meaning that we give that information, we'll determine the emotional response. So there's feelings, and there's patterns, there's information. So say you see a grizzly bear. Because we've been being chased by grizzly bears since the beginning of time, we have instincts already pre-built within us to respond to that information. And it's run. Same thing with like a piece of fruit. We've been eating fruit like monkeys. And so our body already knows, hey, go eat that. There's a positive emotion associated with that information. Now, here's the thing. Anytime we have a strong emotion about anything in this life, whether positive or negative, our body takes a snapshot. Think about like a screenshot on your phone. There's 2 buttons. The first button is the information. The second button is the emotion. And together, they create a snapshot, which is memory stored in your body for later, for survival purposes. And so when something causes a strong negative emotion, it creates trauma. And that trauma is stored in the body and stays with us. And that is where the problem lies. So for instance, if growing up you had negative experiences around others, you're going to have a traumatic response around people, around being social. Meaning you're going to get closed off, you're not going to be able to express yourself authentically, you're going to people please, and you're just going to hate being around other people. Because it will evoke a negative emotional response because of that trauma. But guess what? You don't get to run away from it. You can't just isolate yourself and pretend that it's not a problem. Because your life will go downhill very quickly if you are not able to function with other people. So life demands of you, if you want to live a good life, you must go back into the shadow, retrieve those rejected parts of yourself, integrate it into your psyche, and the problems go away. You're no longer socially anxious. You no longer have problems around other people. And that goes for everything. If you struggle with money, the only reason is because you've had more negative experiences with money, that information, that pattern, than positive ones. And so your life will manifest itself with continuous problems and struggles with money. Until you go into the shadow, retrieve that part of yourself that is already living in abundance, and integrate it into yourself, you will continuously struggle. But once you integrate it, effortless abundance. If your sexual instinct is traumatized, you're having negative sexual thoughts all the time. Gotta deal with it. It's not going away. And so, if we pay close attention, we can discover what parts of ourselves have been rejected, what parts of ourselves that need to be integrated based off the emotion that they evoke. So, for example, if anything in your life evokes a strong negative response and is also creating problems, meaning you're frustrated that you aren't where you want to be, you have a desire that you cannot satisfy because you are not able, for whatever reason, to satisfy it, then that is the next step on your journey. So I want you to think about the one thing in your life that's causing you problems and trouble. And you can go from that one thing and deal with the other things, the other problems. But just focus on one for now. And something will come to you, something that's obviously giving you a hard time. And the reason that it's giving you a hard time is because there's trauma associated with whatever pattern, whatever information that you come up with. And so instead of just putting up with it, instead of just letting the problem fester, you begin to set the intention to deal with it, to overcome it. Now, most of the time, we just don't know how. But this is how. You first recognize the traumatized pattern. You begin becoming aware of the aspects in your life that are causing you trouble. And then what you do, you change the emotional response that is associated with that information. Because your emotion, not only does it influence you to take action, but more importantly, it changes your identity. It changes who you are on a fundamental level. And that is what we are attempting to do. In order for you to return to psychic wholeness, you have to change who you are. Because who you are right now, well, that version of you is creating problems in your life. And you know that this is true if your life is not going the way you want it to. I want you to think of the conscious like a cowboy and the unconscious like a horse. You are a cow person riding a horse. And throughout your life, your body has been taking snapshots of you to paint a picture of the reality that you're living in order to manipulate your system, optimize it for survival. So your unconscious identity is the accumulation of all those snapshots. And the conscious identity is the person you believe yourself to be, your own self-concept. The problem is, if the cowboy wants to go this way and the horse doesn't want to go that way, it wants to go this way, who wins? The horse is going to win every time. And that is what self-sabotage is. And that is the source of all your problems. Because, for instance, if you want money, because you're struggling financially, so you want to go this way, towards abundance. If you have grown up in lack and scarcity and have trauma associated with money, the horse is going to say, we can't go that way. We have to return to lack and scarcity all the time. So it's always going to sabotage your life, bring you back to zero, over and over again until you tell the horse, stop it, we're not going that way anymore, let's go this way. Once you get the horse on board, it's effortless success. And this goes for every single thing in your life, every single problem. Your unconscious will not allow you to betray that unconscious identity. Because think about it. If you came face to face with a grizzly bear and didn't react automatically, by the time you even registered what was happening to you, you would already be eaten. And that's what happened to all of our ancestors. All of the ones who didn't have an automatic response just got eaten. They didn't survive. But the thing is, the unconscious is a primitive system. That doesn't mean it's less. It's very ancient. But the horse is blind. It doesn't see like the conscious sees. Meaning, your unconscious only knows survival, threat, problem. So your unconscious might perceive your negative thoughts as a threat, like a grizzly bear. If there's trauma associated with being around other people, it will create the same fight or flight response. Same thing with money. Same thing with any information that is traumatized, any pattern. Because that negative memory stored in the body evokes a survival response from your threat detection system. And so if you want to be free from the problem, you have to change that information stored in your body. Take it from being negative, take it from trauma, to being at least neutral or positive. Think about a vinyl disc or a vinyl record. The song is the information, it's the pattern. Grooves are created by the emotion. And so in order to change that information, what do we have to do? We have to train the horse and speak its language. That is emotion. And how else do we do that? Through repetition, through habit. We have to condition the horse to go where we want it to go. So the first step, you could say, is becoming aware of where we need to go, becoming aware of the problems in our life, where we are imbalanced, where we are too attached to certain energies that is creating difficulties and struggles in our life, becoming aware of the trauma, and then consciously setting the intention to change our relationship with whatever it is that is creating problems, negative response, and in the release of that memory, that trauma, that karma, you become more free, more harmonious, more balanced. And so the way we change this information is that whenever you're exposed to the traumatized pattern, you got two options. You either neutralize the trauma or you transmute it into positivity. Here's what I mean. It means, let's say you're having problems in your social life, your relationships with others. When you are around others, you will get some anxiety, you will get some negative thoughts. To neutralize it means to not react to them. If you learn how to sit with difficult emotions, anxiety, negative thoughts, without reacting to them, you neutralize that trauma stored in the body. Because your body is essentially saying, okay, there's a threat, you need to pay attention. And by not reacting to that information anymore, you tell your body, oh look, there's no threat. So eventually, your body starts learning, oh, I don't need to continue giving them these emotions, giving them these negative thoughts. And so they begin to fade away on their own. But you have to learn to not react. Because every time you react negatively to something, you are creating a negative emotional response and further traumatizing yourself. You have to learn to be neutral, to not judge yourself, to not judge life. Because think about it. If you judge something as wrong, you're automatically going to resist that thing. You can't help it. So if you have a negative thought and you judge it as wrong, you are creating inner conflict within yourself. You're creating inner turmoil because you cannot live with something wrong within you. You can't just be okay with it. But the problem is, it's not that the thing is wrong, it's that you're judging it as wrong. Even if you struggle with an addiction. If you judge yourself as wrong, as bad, oh, I'm a bad person for doing this, you're going to develop a negative relationship with yourself because you're going to feel bad about yourself. But when you become neutral, when you stop judging yourself, you become non-attached. And non-attachment is freedom. Because you're no longer feeding whatever it is that's causing you problems, your emotions, your shame, your guilt, your fear. If you've made a mistake in the past and you can't let it go, Every time you ruminate on that mistake, judge yourself, feel bad about it, you're just reliving your trauma every single day, making it worse. The actual experience that happened in an instant, and it was gone forever. But you kept that experience alive in your imagination. And people do this forever. And the thing is, we can't control our automatic negative thoughts, but we can control how we react to them. So in order for us to change, we have to change consciously. And this is what it means to begin living more intentionally. Because if you just allow your unconscious programming to run amok, you're never going to change. You're going to stay stuck forever. The horse is just going to keep galloping, and you're just going to be along for the ride. And so as you begin working through your problems, working through these situations, these experiences, you will gain the power to react to them in a more productive way, or learn to be non-reactive at all. And to become non-reactive, you have to practice meditation. It's literally the art of not reacting. Because if you just go on with your life and try to just manage things, our attention, our mind has not been developed to be able to be detached from our experiences. Meaning, you get cut off in traffic. You automatically react with anger. You can't help it. You get triggered. Logically, it doesn't make any sense. Emotionally, you're a slave. And that's just one example. There's billions of examples every day of where we just get pulled all over the place by our thoughts and by our experiences. But in meditation, you have the opportunity to observe your thoughts as clouds passing through the sky. And the more you develop this muscle of being able to not react, of being detached from your experiences, you no longer have that need to get pulled around. You don't have that need to react. You get cut off in traffic and you don't care. But it's like a muscle. Until you build it up, what are you going to do? You're going to feel weak. You're going to feel helpless. And the amazing thing is that as you begin developing this power, which is truly the power of observation, to observe without reaction, you experience great relief from your negative thoughts and from your negative experiences as well. There's a bit of freedom. And the more you build this muscle, the more free you become. And with that freedom comes the clarity to actually deal with the problems. And, well, you become somebody who doesn't react anymore. Your old patterns cause you to react automatically, often in a negative way. As you stop reacting, you change who you are, and you begin neutralizing that trauma because whatever was causing you problems in the past is no longer causing you any problems. So it must no longer be a threat. And you're basically telling that horse, there, it's all good. Don't worry about it anymore. And that is how we use neutrality to break free from these patterns, from these habits, from the problems in our life. And then, well, we also have the option of transmuting that negativity into positivity. And we touched upon this a little bit before in realizing that life is guiding you, that the monster mind is not here to destroy you, that your negative thoughts are not a problem, that your struggles and your problems are not problems. They are only problems because we believe them to be. But you can reframe your attitude toward life and just start entertaining the thought that everything is working out perfectly for you. And you will begin seeing evidence of that because your mind is designed to focus on the evidence of what you already believe. And what you believe will be true for you. It doesn't matter if it's necessarily the whole truth, but it will be true because you're focusing on it. Life is perfectly balanced between negativity and positivity. It has to be. They're equal in value, which means there's an infinite abundance of both negativity and positivity everywhere. So it's not what you believe is true. It's what you choose to focus on. And what you focus on becomes true for you. So in any given situation, there's negativity and there's positivity. And you don't necessarily need to know how it's serving you. You only need to be open to the question. And once you open yourself up to the question, how is this serving me? You allow yourself to receive the wisdom. And with more clarity and more awareness, now you can kind of address the problem. You can see which aspects of yourself need to be addressed, traits you need to embody moving forward, if you want to, of course, live a good life and be free from these problems. And it is in those problems and those struggles in which you become the greatest version of yourself, naturally return to psychic wholeness. Because life is already attempting to do that for you. It's trying to help you every step of the way. But we just kind of get lost in our own ego nonsense and just wallow in our suffering. We have to be open to allowing life to guide us to where we need to go. And oftentimes, it's not pretty. But if we don't embark on this journey, that outcome is a lot less pretty. And you see, a way we can simplify this is we can simply create a vision for our life. What are your dreams and your ambitions? Do you have any goals? What is the life that you actually want to live? And you see, what's going to happen is that in your journey, striving toward the light, striving toward your dreams, there are going to be roadblocks, things preventing you from achieving all that you desire. And those roadblocks will be those rejected parts of yourself that you have yet to integrate. So if you just embark on this journey, trying to achieve your dreams, just go for it. You're going to face resistance. You're going to face problems and struggles. And as you deal with those problems and struggles, you will naturally integrate those lost parts. Because life will demand that of you. And you'll either give up on your dreams or you'll figure it out. But if you give up, well, the problems aren't going to go away. And then you're going to wake up one day, old, never having done anything with your life because you didn't have the courage to enter into that dark forest. You didn't have the courage to actually try. So you get the pain and suffering of growth, or you get the pain of regret. The only difference is, with the pain of growth, you also get the reward. But with the pain of regret, you only get suffering. So you really got to be honest with yourself. What do you want? And forget about what other people say. Forget about what society says. Whether it's right or it's wrong, whether it's even possible, it doesn't matter. We need an ideal to strive toward. Otherwise, we're not going to go anywhere. Without this, we have a hard time growing. And it's very easy to just be content and satisfied with whatever life you live, if it's not painful enough. When it's really painful, well, that's a strong motivating factor to change. Even when you come out of that situation, eventually it's going to be nice enough. And that is a great trap, because nice enough is the death of a lot of dreams. As they say, the enemy of great is good. So it's important to have even an unreachable goal so that we never stop striving. And not striving in, well, I need this to happen. Or like this kind of trauma pattern where you can never be satisfied with life until you achieve everything. But you enjoy the journey. You enjoy life. Because that's what it's meant for. You're supposed to enjoy the game of life. Enjoy the struggle in becoming the greatest version of you. Enjoy the process, making your dreams made manifest. Because again, it is through the contrast that gives life meaning. You're not where you want to be. And in your struggle toward where you want to be, when you finally make it, it'll all be worth it. Not in spite of the problems and the struggles and the difficulty, but because of them. So you begin to see the perfection behind it all. That your problems and struggles are not bad, they are necessary. And once you see this, you stop judging them and labeling them as bad, as wrong. Because there are no problems. There are only opportunities. There are no roadblocks. There are only stepping stones. But I use those terms because, well, we understand them. But the truth is, the higher truth, is that everything is perfect. Everything is happening exactly the way it needs to for your highest spiritual growth. And you don't have to believe me, you just have to be open to asking life, to seeing for yourself how this might be true. And with every piece of evidence, you'll become more and more convinced until you stop worrying about it at all. Because you'll eventually see that life is taking care of you every moment of your life. And when we are too absorbed in our own suffering, we cannot see it. So it's a process from the darkness into the light. We're on a rescue mission to rescue the old, lost, rejected parts of ourselves. We look at the monster mind, which manifests as our negative thoughts, overthinking, rumination, the problems, the addictions, the adversary of our life. And we change our perception of it to realize that the whole time it was guiding us to where we wanted to go. That is why they call Lucifer the light bringer, because it is the negative things in our life, that which causes suffering, which wakes us up, which causes us to be more aware. And with all of these different ideas put together, you become unstoppable because you no longer allow the darkness to consume you, but you use it as your own power, and then you become immune to its effect. Darkness, death, chaos is the only thing that destroys us, and it's created through imbalance. But once you learn how to wield that dark power, by facing your problems, by not running away from it, but by using it as your spiritual practice, you enter into that dark forest, you reframe the darkness to serve you instead of destroy you. Well then, nothing can destroy you ever again. So you're not at risk living a tragic life. You're not at risk to be destroyed by your addictions or your negative thoughts or your depression. But you learn to use them. And no matter what happens, you always come out on top. So go forth, my friend. Live your life. And take that first step, because that's the hardest one. Stand up for yourself and realize that you deserve to live a good life. And don't settle for less. Get clear on what you want out of life. And then just say, it's already mine. I don't have to know how I'm going to get it. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. Getting it is beside the point. The point is to become the greatest version of you on the journey. Everything else will take care of itself. You don't got to worry about it. You just got to take the next step and then the next step. And all along the journey, you will see progress. Before you know it, you'll be living your best life, free from the problems you're currently experiencing, free from that suffering. You will have found the Holy Grail, everything you've ever desired. But you just got to take that first step. I am Ray. If you don't want to spend years mindlessly wandering, trying to figure it all out on your own, I created Monster Mind Mastery to help you deal with your negative thoughts, to heal your trauma, and to finally begin living the life you've always desired. Much peace and many blessings. And remember, just be.